Good evening, mi gente. This is Ray Collazo. You're watching and listening to the Bomba Live Found in Translation Simulcast Special Spring Sports Edition. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, obviously our minds and our prayers and our hearts are still with people going through, some incredible tragedies. You just saw the pictures on screen of Keishla Rodriguez and Andrea Ruiz Costa. So we lost way too young due to the scourge of femicide and domestic violence going on in the island of Puerto Rico. And we may get into that later in the show. We're waiting a potential special surprise guest to speak to that issue from the sports perspective. But also our hearts and minds are with Lo Gente de Colombia, who are going through civil unrest, and the people, Lo Gente de Pueblo, are raising their voices in a very powerful way. And unfortunately, the government is responding very harshly. So, nuestras oraciones a la gente humilde de Colombia, we're with you 100%. So in the midst of all this heavy duty stuff that I've been talking about social media the last several days, we wanted to lighten it up. We wanted to kind of check in with the sports whisperer and really our point person here at Found in Translation Bomba Live for all things sports. And maybe get my opinions on some of this stuff because, I'll be in it for real. And as a Philly sports fan, I'm rocking my Trust the Process shirt. We're very excited to our Sixers are about to enter the playoff season. So a lot going on here. And again, we're going to get into a lot of, and also some new, very special announcements about Bomba Live 2 coming up June 12th, 2021, family. June 12th, 2021. Don't do anything but be in front of your laptops and checking us out, Bomba Live 2. So let's get to it. The Sports Whisperer is back, the host of the Full Monte show on the Nuts and Bolts Sports Network. My man, Monte Perez. What's up, Monte?
I always get fired up to come on your show and talk sports. You are Philly fans. I'm from New York, New Jersey. I have friends all over the country from Chicago, Boston, but there's something special about Philadelphia fans. You can't match the intensity.
Special in like you may need to call 911 special. We are obnoxious. We're loud and proud, and I wallow in it.
Or throw snowballs at Santa Claus during a halftime show.
Oh, God. Talk about living in the past. Let me tell you something, Monte. People are like, wow. One of the biggest things doing podcasting, people have told me, especially my non-Philly friends and people that know me from my work around the country, is you're like, wow, Ralph, you're like really into sports. You like become a different person when you talk about this stuff. Let me tell you something. I've had a crush on my wife since I was 15 years old. Decades plus go by. She don't pay me no mind. By happenstance, the stars aligned. One of my brothers marries her cousin. We end up at a pre-wedding event, and it's the day that I forget which pitcher it was. One of the Phillies pitchers threw a no-hitter, and I happened to be sitting there with her cousins and like real guys, like guys she respects, men's men, and I'm sitting there yelling and screaming with all of them just like that. And you know what? A week later, we were dating, Monte. One of the things she told me was, she said, seeing you be like seeing that side of you was appealing. I didn't know that. So sports literally got it done for me, brother. Brought us together. No question about it. Later on the show, we're going to talk about NBA playoffs. We're going to take, again, we may get into some of the sort of the sports angle and what's the sports world responsibility to address some of these social issues, particularly impacting the women in our community. And in, the case of Puerto Rico, the island of Puerto Rico and the Latino community specifically. And we'll get into our stuff. And I know my Sixer fans want to hear Monte's take on that. And there's other nations. Jets Nation wants your pulse. Cowboy Nation's waiting a bated breath to hear what you have to say. And we'll get to that. But first, let's talk a little NFL draft. I'm so excited to talk to you about this, brother, because I thought the NFL draft was so appealing. And we'll get into the big boy quarterbacks. But let's just start here before we get into the quarterbacks in general. Monte, what's your big picture takeaway from last week's NFL draft?
Well, my big picture takeaway is you heard the expression that nothing like a woman scorned. Okay, Aaron Rodgers was scorned last year in the NFL draft. Now, for those who don't know, the Packers have not drafted a skill position player since Aaron Rodgers was drafted. And what did they do last year? They draft Jordan Love out of Utah State in the first round. The guy, and listen, if Jordan Love was the backup, then I'd say, okay, the Packers got something here. But he was a practice squad player. He was fourth string sometimes on a three quarterback. Yeah. And when Aaron Rodgers goes to the NFC Championship, he sees Tom Bruschi, who's been the fourth option all year long. He sees him going to Antonio Brown. Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams, and that's it. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I get out of Green Bay. And look at all my Green Bay stuff. I'm a Green Bay fan. But if Aaron Rodgers leaves, I'm not one of these ride or die fans. If Aaron Rodgers leaves, I root for who he goes to. The Packers screwed up big time. Aaron Rodgers announces the day of the draft, hey, he lets it leak. I want out. And that kind of took the story away from all these young players. It was Aaron Rodgers getting revenge on what the Green Bay Packers did to him last year, and that was disrespected. I talk about this on Sunday on the Full Monty Sports Show. We go live 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I said the number one reason people cheat on their spouse, people get divorced, people leave their jobs is because they don't feel appreciated. When you go out and draft Jordan Love in the first round, you're saying to Aaron Rodgers, we like you, but it's time to move on. And Aaron Rodgers wants out of Green Bay, and rightly so.
It's no surprise seeing the color scheme you have behind you and the branding. And anyone that follows the Fourth Twister on social media knows Aaron Rodgers is his homeboy, no question about it. And this look of him, he's shown more love to the Jeopardy production team than the manager of the Green Bay Packers this offseason.
Yes.
And so I guess my question to you is, what's your prediction? What do you think is going to happen here with Aaron Rodgers? Because let me tell you something. I share your love for Aaron Rodgers. He's of the modern era. He's my favorite superstar quarterback. I think the guy's a total stud. And you're right. It's somewhat analogous to what happened with the Eagles. It's interesting how during the McNabb era, we never gave the guy skill position players. We never gave the guy the full weaponry until the last year with Owens. And of course,
Owens, yeah.
And then of course, Wentz, we're doing everything we can. All we do is draft offense. Our defense suffers. And, that whole saga plays out. But my point is that if you're going to invest in anybody to make them happy, it's the franchise quarterback. So what do you think ultimately is going to happen? Do you think he'll hold out? They'll trade him?
I think, listen, there's every point in relationships where you just had enough. And I think Aaron Rodgers has had enough. I mean, you saw last year that Arizona goes out and gets a stud wide receiver in Hopkins for Kyler Murray. You saw the Bills make a trade for Stephon Diggs, right, for Josh Allen. You see that when Brady goes to Tampa Bay, all these guys want to come and play for him. Listen, Aaron Rodgers, it's over. It's over. I'm making the prediction now. He will not be in a Green Bay uniform next year. It's done. It's done. You don't let something like that leak. And what do the Packers do this year? They go out in the first round and they draft a defensive back who on my board I didn't have going till late to the second round, and they draft him with their 28th, 29th pick. So it wasn't even like, hey, we're going to try to appease Rodgers. We're going to draft a wide receiver. They didn't even do that. So it's over. It's done. There's every point in a relationship where you say, I've had enough. Rodgers is out.
Let me tell you something. I mean, any team, including my team, would be lucky to have the brother.
Of course, of course.
But on some level, the NFL brass is hoping that somehow John Gruden can get his hands on Aaron Rodgers. Talk to me. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers ends up, brother? Vegas would be a sexy location for Aaron Rodgers.
The best setup for Rodgers is Denver. Denver has 3 or 4 wide receivers, young and talented. Denver has a very good defense. Listen, Rodgers doesn't care about cold weather. He's played in cold weather his whole life. They have a very good running game. So he gave the Packers 3 choices. He said Denver, the Raiders, and San Francisco. San Francisco just drafted Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. I think that's going to be their franchise quarterback. They're going to try to move Jimmy Garoppolo, or maybe put Jimmy Garoppolo in the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes mode where he was just mentoring him. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, my where I want to go is the Denver Broncos.
You're getting a lot of conversation on YouTube, Monte. Greg Rector says Rodgers was promised they would trade him. Packers reneged. That's why Aaron is so unhappy. And there's a Cowboy fan complaining about you, but that's okay. That's all right. That's the remote. The other quarterback that's sort of in question here, which it's just so mysterious, is Deshaun Watson. The Texans totally fumbled his trade value before all the scandalous stuff came out, because they basically admitted they were going to trade him. And now this 22 lawsuits, civil suits of women. Who knows what's going on there? How does that impact the QB carousel? And can you even trade this guy, or what can you do at this point if you're the Texans?
Unfortunately, I always bring this up. Greg Hardy, a few years ago for the Dallas Cowboys, basically beat the hell out of his girlfriend. He threw her on a bed of semi-automatic weapons. Jimmy Jones signed him. If you could play and you could run, throw, tackle, catch, someone is going to give you a chance. But it's such a mess with Deshaun Watson. When I first heard the first story, I tend to always believe the victim. So if it's one victim, 5, 15, I always tend to believe the victim. But we're looking at a pattern here that is just unacceptable, especially with the Me Too movement. People are coming out, and rightly so. So I think Deshaun Watson, if I'm a general manager, I say, look, he's never really won a big game. He's a phenomenal talent, but it's not worth the baggage. Remember Ray Rice a few years ago, he punched his then fiance and dragged her like a caveman out of the elevator. And my first thought was, this wasn't the first time Ray Rice hit her, because when he punched her and knocked her out, he didn't have a reaction. It was just like, ho hum. But Ray Rice was at the tail end of his career. It's going to be interesting here because Deshaun Watson, when he's healthy, is a top 7 quarterback. So are you going to take are you going to take the risk and all the baggage? Let's say you make a trade for him and then you sign him and then all this stuff comes out and he's found guilty of what he's accused of. You don't have a quarterback and you gave up all those pieces for him.
Texans are really in purgatory and bad management. They have that weird situation that guru,
no general manager
that became the general manager. These, they're bad. They just don't know what they're doing down there. We're talking to the sports writer Monte Perez. Monte, shout out again your show and when people can watch your show on the Nuts and Bolts Sports Network.
Sure. My show is called The Full Monty Sports Show. We go live every Sunday at 11 a.m. We also do shows at Tuesday at 8 p.m. Just go to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Give us the thumbs up. Subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. And you can follow me on social media at MontyJP231. Or just Google the Sports Whisperer so you can see all my shows and my articles there.
Let's get to the Youngboy quarterbacks. In terms of the draft, Trevor Lawrence, probably the most celebrated QB prospect since Andrew Luck, I would imagine. Maybe even before that. I remember the John Elway probably being, in my lifetime, kind of the most hyped up quarterback coming out of college, and he certainly produced. I found the order after Trevor Lawrence, quite honestly, a little puzzling. I guess my question to you, Monty, is when you saw Josh Fields get picked, wow, the Bears, maybe actually thinking straight, trying to pick a quarterback. They haven't had a good quarterback my entire life. Literally, like McMahon's the best you got. Eric Kramer. I almost feel like is this the Deshaun Watson of this draft? Because the other guys have some have some talent, obviously, and have good measurables. But I kind of go back to thinking about Deshaun Watson and when he came out. What else could Fields have done at Ohio State more than he did to prove that he was a cut above some of these other guys?
I had on my draft board, obviously Trevor Lawrence 1. I had Justin Fields 2. I had Trey Lance, who from North Dakota State 3. And obviously Mac Jones, I didn't have that high. Zach Wilson, the Jets picked him. But let's just talk about the Bears for a minute, right? They move up in the draft. They get Justin Fields. Then they take an absolute stud offensive lineman who could have went in the first round. They moved up to get him in the second round. Think about this. Matt Nagy was 25-13 with Mitchell Trubisky. As limited as Mitchell Trubisky was, you now take Justin Fields, who can run, who can throw. Again, another quarterback who spent his whole college career playing in cold weather. So it's not like you're taking someone from the University of Florida or USC and bringing them in the cold. Justin Fields doesn't care about that. It's freezing in Columbus, Ohio. Think about this, though, and I said this on my show as well. If Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay and you're a Bears fan, when was the last time you said to yourself, we have the best quarterback in our division for the next 5 to 7 years? Never in my lifetime. Never.
Never. No, never. Not in my lifetime. The we'll see. I mean, you never know. I mean, I think a lot when I see Zach Wilson, and some of these other guys, Trey Lance and even Mac Jones. And Mac Jones proved stuff in college, but Alabama quarterbacks are shaky. I'm saying that hurts, right? But the bottom line is that Fields proved that Fields never did anything not to be. So I just wonder. But let me ask you
in
a
all
question.
fairness, though,
Yeah.
in all fairness, with Hurts, he became a much better passing quarterback when he went to Oklahoma.
Well, he
A
went to a
much
much
better
worse defensive conference too.
Well,
So,
yeah.
and he shows spurts. I have hope with him.
Yeah.
I have hope with him, but he's certainly not a
I like
no-brainer.
him. I like him.
Yeah, I generally like him too. I think he's not particularly good at avoiding big hits. That's my kind of big picture concern with him. But and what else? Let me ask. I know Jet Nation is wondering, Monte, what's your take on this draft? Jet people actually believe the Jets did a good job drafting. Unbelievable.
Well,
so
no,
is there hope for the Jets, brother?
Yes, I actually gave them an A- in one of my articles with the draft. But I'm going to use a quote here that was in The Matrix 2 when Neo goes and meets the creator of The Matrix. He says, "Hope, it's human beings' greatest strength and greatest weakness." That is what it's like being a Jet fan. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you had a check mark of what you need in the draft, first you would go quarterback. They took Zach Wilson. Second, you needed an offensive lineman. They take the lineman out of USC, Vera Tucker. Then you're like, okay, we need a wide receiver. They go out and they get Elijah Moore, and then they needed a running back, and they get the kid from North Carolina. So the first 4 picks in the Jets draft are all going to play early and often. It's a home run for the Jets. On paper, they did everything right, and I know Jet fans don't want to believe that, but as a lifelong diehard Jet fan, I'm going to watch, and hopefully this year, I won't have to not watch, because usually when it comes to the Knicks, the season's over by Christmas. When it comes to the Jets, the season's over by Halloween.
I know our Jet super fan Jorge, the Dominican baller Martinez, will sleep a little better tonight knowing he feels good about this.
They did a great job. They did a great job.
It's interesting. I was sharing with our Cowboy super fan Angel Rivera from San Antonio that I said, it's so interesting is that you probably picked the best defensive player in the bad, Michael Peters. What a stud linebacker that kid is out of Penn State. But it doesn't matter because talent's never the issue in Dallas. It's the mismanagement. So we'll see about the Cowboys. My Eagles.
I think getting Dan Quinn is going to make that defense. I could say with the talent level there, they should be top 12, top 10, especially if you're going to look at Washington, who we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a turnover machine. Daniel Jones is still questionable, and we don't know how good Hurts is going to be. So Dallas's defense could really do something special talent-wise, and with their new defensive coach, who used to be the head coach of Atlanta.
Well, he was a hell of a defensive coordinator with Seattle, had a lot of talent, but McCarthy is really, talk about the residue of how long Rodgers has been lamenting up in Green Bay, right? Because McCarthy hasn't shown something in, when has he really shown anything as a coach? So we're talking to Monte Perez about the NFL draft. Last thing I'll say about the draft and the Eagles is, we sort of did the chalk pick. I know there's a lot of games bouncing back and forth that, we sort of took the chalk pick with a Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. I think he's going to be fine. Good player. Strong. I'm not too concerned about his size. Antonio Brown was small coming out of college. There's guys that are skinny. But, I think the bigger issue is the organization. For them to take for Howie Roseman out, think everybody in the second and third round, take these guys that on paper, they're good players, a lot of injury histories, a lot of questions, a lot of question marks. And, he just consistently outsmarts himself. And, and then going back even, how this whole Wentz situation was bumbled. And I think for the record, I don't think he'll ever be, I really think on some level the injuries are taking their toll with him. So I don't think he'll ever be back to the level I saw. That guy that got hurt on the field against the Rams at that point in the season was the best Eagle player I've ever seen. That guy that year
he would have won the MVP, and that
he was
year
fantastic.
Yeah, and that year he had more touchdowns in 3 less games than Tom Brady. I'm going to make a prediction here. It's the first time I'm going to say it. I'm saying the 2 quarterbacks that you must watch out for, whether you're a fantasy football player or you just want to watch good quarterback play, watch what Sam Darnold does in North Carolina with Matt Rule, and watch what Carson Wentz does in Indianapolis with Frank Reich. Both
you
of
really
those
think
guys,
coaching's going to make the difference for those guys, huh?
I think both of those guys are going to be absolute home runs, studs for the next 3 to 5 years. Absolutely.
Studs.
I will bet anything on that.
I like those coaches. I saw Matt Rule very up close at Temple. Our producer, Oba Garcia, went to high school at Matt Rule.
Yes.
Riverdale.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's some interesting connections we have with Matt, but he's a hell of a coach. So I wouldn't be shocked. I just don't know how.
And Carolina Carolina has Robbie Anderson who was with the Jets, had 95 catches last year. You're getting Christian McCaffrey back. So, I mean, this is really a talented team. And you look at Frank Reich, he's a very good coach. Indianapolis has a very good offensive line. Jonathan Taylor's an absolute stud out of Wisconsin, was in the doghouse early as a rookie. But listen, I'm telling you, watch those two quarterbacks.
We're going to go to our first break. What I'm going to do, Monte, give you a chance for you and your fans. You're getting so many. We'll get into the fan reaction to Monte Perez being on Bomba Live Found in Translation Simulcast. They're very excited to see you here, brother. And it's not just the dashing looks. I mean, they're really intrigued by your substance. But I know you're going to enjoy this clip, Monte, from a recent Bomba Live episode. One of our favorites, who's become a big part of the Bomba Live family here. The legendary freestyle singer Betty D from Sweet Sensation not only talked about her upcoming appearance on Bomba Live 2, the virtual Puerto Rican celebration Saturday, June 12th, but talked about what A-listers, 5-star prospects she may be bringing to the table.
We are going to have amazing contributors to the community. We're going to have such amazing talent, and I'm putting it out here now live. I'm calling all of you, all my friends. We're going to do this. So look into my eyes and just say yes. So all of you are watching it. We're going to have some amazing talent. I think she turned down the gauntlet
to a couple other listeners.
I did. I can't. I'm like, listen,
right there. I like
that. I'm talking to you. Yes, my friends. You all know who you are. My freestyle friends, all my salsa friends. We're going to do this. This is going to be a great collaboration. And I'm excited. I'm excited to actually be able to meet these community leaders and these impactful people that because so here's the truth, okay? This is the opposite end of the spectrum for me. I hang out with freestyle artists and other artists and entertainers. That's my life. What really brings me passion on the other side of me is meeting all these, amazing community leaders and people who make an impact. And these superheroes is what I call them. That's who I fangirl on.
Monte, come on. Let me tell you something. Since that appearance, brother.
Listen, that's big time right there. That's big time right there.
I mean, can't get it better.
And April 12th. And you said what's the date on the 12th? June 12th?
June 12th, brother. We're gonna have a party. We have an announcement related to you on that show later. But I'm gonna tell you something. Betty has backed up the talk, brother. So I'm gonna give you a couple names. Brenda K. Starr, brother, is gonna be in the house. Come on. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this smile. Look at this smile. Look at this smile.
MTV, late 80s, early 90s, all over again.
Daphne Rubin Vega.
These are all people she knows. These are all her crew.
These are all people going to be on the show, brother, because she's bringing the show. Yeah. So Brenda going to be on. Well, they're our friends too. Brenda going to be on the show.
Yeah.
Daphne Rubin Vega for the arts crowd is one of the stars of the Broadway musical Rent. She's a cast member of the movie musical adaptation of In the Heights coming out that weekend. So we're going to be talking about In the Heights. K7, brother, and TK going to be up in here.
K7.
Come on, Monty. Okay, so we got some heavy hitters coming.
I have K7 on my playlist, by the way.
Oh, no. So. I mean, come on. Zunga, 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 zang.
Yes.
So Betty's going to be in the house, and we'll have an announcement related to to my man later in the show. I'll tell you, Monty, your fans are with you, brother. Oh my God, somebody's down with our show here. Brenda K.
There you go. Brenda K. Starr.
MC. I like that. Peter Perez, the sports whisperer, is awesome. Yeah. No question about it.
I pay my brother to write that. I pay my brother to write that.
Well, I don't. Is Andrea your sister? Because she thinks you're the best.
Well, you know.
And hold on. I like this. LC says, "Where's the Justin Herbert love?" Charger Nation.
Listen,
all 74 of them are very upset.
Another team that did a tremendous job in the draft and in the offseason. I called it last year in preseason. Obviously, I'm an Oregon fan. I was wrong on Marcus Mariota, but I said Justin Herbert will win Rookie of the Year. He's the best quarterback in the draft. No one wanted to believe me.
No doubt. And we're talking to Monte Perez, the sports whisperer from the Nuts and Bolts Sports Network. Oh, and actually, hold on. I think our very special guest is about to come on here, brother. So hold on. Let's get all right. So we'll get to the NBA draft in a second. But we did want to, we couldn't. You're there, Mercedes. We'll choose you a second. We couldn't go without the show to touching on, of course, the context of what's been going on with the femicide and the tragic murders of Keisla Andrea in Puerto Rico. And, the sports world was impacted by this. It was a big part of this story because one of the rising young boxers in Puerto Rico was allegedly one of the assailants. So we wanted to talk to someone not only that is involved in the boxing industry, Monte, to have a conversation around what's the boxing world's responsibility, what's the sports world's responsibility to addressing issues of domestic violence, and someone that we couldn't have had literally the perfect person to be part of this conversation. One of the top boxing promoters in combat sports, Monte, and also one of the few Latina prominent boxing promoters, and someone not only is is very aware of the people in this network and also a candidate for county council in upstate Pennsylvania, be Rochester, Mercedes Vasquez Simmons. Call her Miss Simmons if you're nasty.
Yeah.
What's up, Mercedes? How you doing?
Call me Miss Simmons if you're nasty.
That's right. What's going on, Mercedes Vasquez Simmons? So we're going to talk about your campaign in a second, but Mercedes, you wanted to come on, not only talk about the campaign and talk to Monte a little bit. Maybe you have a Buffalo Bills questions for our sports whisperer, but Mercedes, you're in a very unique position to talk about this conversation because you not only are a very proud, progressive, feminist woman, very engaged in these issues. You support the island in much of your philanthropic work, but you're also in the boxing business, and and I want to preface this. Nothing we're going to talk about as it relates to, Felix Verdejo is to put any spin on what happened. Obviously, it's horrific. If what's reported is true, he's a psychopath. But you have a unique perspective because you've met this young man, and you're sort of at the intersection of the conversation. So, Mercedes, welcome to the show, and just your thoughts about how do we start this conversation in our community around how the sports world gets engaged in addressing this issue.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for having me. We're talking about two great things that I love, which is sports and politics. This is great. This should be just a segment on its own, right? Because we can fill up.
You're busy. You always have a home here.
I appreciate that. But yes, all of Puerto Rico and any Puerto Rican, we're all in mourning. This is horrific that's happened, and these crimes that continue to happen. Unfortunate situation, but it's bringing awareness to a chronic issue we have in the island, which is domestic abuse. This has been going on for decades, and it's taking this unfortunate situation to bringing it to light. We're seeing some changes in policy that's happening in Puerto Rico to address it. Andrea was asking for an order of protection, and she was denied. And unfortunately, she's not with us today. So there's a lot of things that are coming, positive things that are coming from this. But let me tell you, this is just near and dear to me. Verdejo was very special to me, and it continues to be special. We pray that it's not true. You always want to think this because I've known this kid for quite some time. We followed him through his amateur career. 2012, he represented Puerto Rico in the Olympics, losing to Lomachenko. Now, if you think about that, right?
Look at that, Monte.
This was the best of the best.
No, he was the hope, and this is so unfortunate. Like I said, and I know you shared a picture. You've known this kid for 10 years. I don't want to show it because, like I said, I don't want anyone thinking we're trying to dismiss or downplay
Absolutely.
What happened. But I know, Mercedes, I guess one of the things you shared with me is how shocked you are because you just never saw this coming, and I guess that's one of the challenges here. There's obviously issues of mental health and the psychology of combat sports. So please continue.
To your point, I've known this kid for quite some time. Honestly, I saw him as an ex-Tito Trinidad, and I think many people saw him as that. He's passive. He's got charisma. He's beautiful. He's got a beautiful ring IQ. So we really just saw him. He had a lot of attributes that Tito Trinidad. He was the Puerto Rico pride. So you think about it, now he's on the other side. He's on the other end of the spectrum, that you're now the Puerto Rico nightmare. I can't even fathom. I just can't even get my hands or my head around the possibilities of him committing this heinous crime. It was a horrific crime. And, I say justice for Keisha, justice for all the women who have died in the hands of domestic violence. It's just unnecessary. But it's something that as an island, right, the island of Puerto Rico, we have to address because it's a chronic issue. But boxing also has a responsibility. I'm very proud that as a promoter, and I think I am the only Puerto Rican promoter licensed in the island of Puerto Rico, as well as in New York, and as a woman, as a Puerto Rican woman, I take this so personal. Domestic violence is just it's unnecessary, and unfortunately, my uncle did pass away earlier in this year because of domestic violence. So very near and dear to me, the WBC CARES, which I oversee in Puerto Rico, WBC CARES Puerto Rico. This has been our initiative to address domestic violence. Every year we have an awareness video, and I think we're going to turn that up just a bit. We've reached out to, the WBC champions that we have on the island, Tito Trinidad, just so many that we have there, because Puerto Rico isn't lacking in champions when it comes to boxing. And it's all hands on deck. Everyone is just so much affected by this, and there's zero tolerance for domestic violence. So we are heartbroken over this. If he is guilty of this, then he will have to pay the price. But again, it's just difficult for me to believe this. But as a mother, gosh, my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to Keisha's family.
It's two recent tragedies. Of course, we don't want to. Andrea Ruiz Costas, of course, died, as you said, in tragedy because the government and the whole society failed her. Monte, we actually were talking earlier about kind of these issues as it relates to the NFL draft and NFL players and where they're going to go and what's the capacity for teams to accept some of this nonsense. If the player's important enough. So, Monte, what do you think is the responsibility of the boxing world in the sports world to address these issues?
Well, one of the things you said, and one of the things that really breaks my heart, is every time, for example, Nicole Brown Simpson, she said over 12 times she called the police and said, he's going to kill me. He's beating the hell out of me. And the police's response is, what did you do to upset him? Why is it that when a woman gets beat through domestic violence, the police force first response is, what did you do to aggravate him? Which, when someone is a domestic violence abuser, you don't have to do anything. It's not the woman's fault, and you just said it. She tried to get protection. There's something in our society where, whether it's a UFC fighter, a basketball player, a Major League Baseball, football, where the police automatically, when they go on the scene, they go easy on the person who's committing the violence, and they almost scold or question the victim. So first it has to start with the police not siding with these animals who are attacking these women.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. Mercedes, you're very busy nowadays. You're running. Tell people about this latest project you've thrown your hat in the ring in the world of politics. Long overdue, some would say. You've been such a beacon of light for business and organizing and philanthropy, voting rights in upstate New York. So tell us a little bit about this campaign you're running and how people could support you, because you have a very big election coming up next month.
Yes. So I'm going from the boxing ring to the political ring. This is exciting times. I'm really thrilled that I'm given an opportunity to represent my neighborhood, right, which is District 22. We have 27,000 residents in that area, which half are Latinos. And so it's exciting. It'll be the first time a Latina would represent that area. And again, I'm excited. I'm not a politician, but when you see things, again, when it comes to representatives, you have to make sure that you hold them accountable. And this gentleman that was running or held the seat, the incumbent, right, really didn't pay attention. And you have to be mindful of who you're representing. You have to be mindful and really care for your constituents. This wasn't the case. When we had issues, it almost went into deaf ears. And I said, you know what, enough is enough. And I decided I was going to go for it. As you know, I was very active in Hilda Etcher's campaign. Unfortunate things happened, which really propelled me to take this step into politics.
No question. Remind people, Mercedes, what day's your election? Where do they have to live to vote for you? And anything else you want to share about your campaign? How can they give you a donation? Shout out your website.
Oh, I appreciate that. So primaries, and then theoretically, like primary is my election. If I don't make it past primaries,
it's New York,
then I'll probably, well, actually I'm on two lines. I'm on working, the working party. So June 22nd, it's Monroe County the Monte County 7, District 22. My website is Mercedes for LD22.
Fantastic, Mercedes. We, so all of our friends that have family in Rochester, upstate New York, everyone knows somebody up there. Definitely, make sure they go out there for Janice Vasquez-Simmons. Let me tell you, this woman's the best of the best, Monte. This woman combines sports, activism, culture, and you know what? To be a strong woman in boxing, in the boxing business, I mean, you talk about sharks in that business.
Yeah.
Let's keep it real.
Oh, yeah.
And she's also been a pioneer to support women boxers and women in the MMA. So we're gonna be collaborating, on all those levels. We're gonna play a quick clip because Mercedes, you were drafted into politics and you were compelled. I have actually called on Monte to serve for our very special event in June 12th. So I'm gonna give you just a clip of the kind of content people are gonna see on Bomba Live 2. This was really the highlight of the entire show when one of the great icons of our community from the sports world graced the stage.
It's an honor, brother. It's an honor.
Man, un placer, Manny. Yeah, it is a great honor for me. You're talking about, some of my personality traits, and I have to turn all of that to my parents. My mom was an educator. My dad was a merchant marine, and they brought us, nos criaron bien, como dicen allá en Puerto Rico. And, it goes back to the family, having an opportunity and having the honor and the blessing to have a great, set of parents that would teach you right from wrong, discipline and all those things, never really forget where you come from, and always be nice to people. And it doesn't matter how big you get or how famous you get, you're always going to be, my son, and I could tell you whatever I want. I could correct you. And a lot of that, happened also, I'm sure, at the Clemente family. And, he said, we are, brothers, and not only me, and I'm speaking for all the Puerto Rican baseball players that are in my generation and older. Doña Vera took us all like we were her kids. And I always made a point to, every time I saw her, and I saw you, obviously, Luis and Roberto, I made a point to go out there and pay my respects, because the Clemente family has been there are legends in Puerto Rico, but in Major League Baseball, they're considered baseball royalty. And, I'm so glad.
Doesn't get any better than that, fam. So that was Bomba Live 1. Mercedes. Now I have charged, and he is elected to serve. Monte Perez has been appointed the sports programming director for Bomba Live 2, coming up June 12th. So, Mercedes, before you go back to campaigning, do you have any advice for how Monte can make our sports coverage? Hold on, we got to show people love here. June 12th, bigger and better. 10-hour plus extravaganza covering all sectors of our community. But Monte's the man is going to lead our sports coverage, sister. So talk to him. Give him a word of wisdom.
Listen, make sure you have lots of boxing. We've got some exciting fighters that are coming up. Bomba has a fight coming up. We also have one of the Vieques, this young man from Vieques. I absolutely love him. I'll make sure to get contact information. But there
was a great card last weekend. Un respeto, Pitufo. Christopher Diaz lost a tough fight, but very valiant. Berlanga's a phenomenon. Xander Zayas was on that card. He showed me he's getting a lot of buzz on social media.
Card.
Yeah, give a shout out to our big lady boxer who are trying to get involved. So, Monte, she's working for you, brother.
I'm there with you, Monte.
Yeah, so Mercedes is working for it. Mercedes, get back to campaigning.
You got it.
You got to support Mercedes Vasquez-Simmons and her very valiant effort to get on the county council up there in the great city of Rochester, upstate New York. Monte, I got a lot of people up there. Next time we get up to upstate New York, we'll tailgate for a Bills game or something up there.
That's right. This is your second home. Come on.
Yeah, no question about it. We're ready to go. Thank you so much, Mercedes.
Gracias.
And we'll be in touch. I'm whatever you do to support this woman and her valiant effort. We're talking to the sports wizard, Monte Perez. I know you're getting pumped for Bomba Live 2, brother. But let's talk a little.
I'm very pumped. Before we get to can I just say something about my comment? Because I think I'm reading some of the comments here. I'm not blaming the police when it comes to domestic violence. I'm not blaming them at all. But I think one of the things that as a society, people always say, oh, doesn't someone deserve a second chance? Yes, they do. But here's my take on it. If you physically abuse a woman and you're an NFL player, and she has to get medical attention, and it's a 2 or 3 time domestic violence, you could go out and get another job. You could work at Best Buy. You could sell cars. But I have no tolerance for when someone – now, my first thought a few years ago was 1 strike and you're out. But then after speaking with psychologists and psychiatrists, they say that victim will be a victim the rest of their lives because they'll always blame them that they got kicked out of the NFL, and it might get worse for that person. But my point is that if you are a domestic violence abuser and it happens repeatedly, you should be banned from playing sports. Banned. If you're a quarterback, if you're an NBA basketball player, if you're a boxer, go out and make a living. But you're not making a living where people have to pay to watch you.
No, and because look, the reality is major sports in this country is not only just a business, which it is, but it is kind of like part of our culture. And, that's why, and some people thought it was trivial, but when they changed the name of the Washington football team and they're changing the name of the Cleveland baseball team, when we those symbolic, what seem like trivial, not real important issues is important. So in the case of my Phillies, the fact that we brought up Odubel Herrera again, he didn't get convicted in a court of law, but, and his girlfriend dropped the charges. We kind of know the whole story. And it really kind of speaks to a community standard, which we have to draw a much stronger line. And that's part of the issue that, talking about whether it's Puerto Rico or the United States around the world, that men in our society, men in the sports world, and including our sports teams have to make a strong statement. Now, there are blurry lines, but to your point, Monte, just because nobody's saying, for a valid accusation, you can't make a living the rest of your life, but it is a privilege to play, world-class professional sports. Let's get to
again, she was just talking about politics and sports. One of the things that really bothers me is Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, was found guilty. He served his time. As soon as he comes out of jail, he posts a book about what he was guilty of and all the things that happened. Like, why should you make a profit of something that you were found guilty of? Like, that should not be allowed.
Yeah, we're sick, because the reality too is that we shouldn't buy it, So and he's Trump's foil, and the entertainment, the Hollywood, the reality showization of our politics is a bigger problem. Monte, I want to talk a little NBA with you, brother, because you're my hoops guy. So what's so interesting, sort of big picture, you tell me if I'm wrong about what's going to happen here with the NBA players. Obviously, COVID and the truncated schedule. This is kind of a weird year on a bunch of levels. But on some level, it is a potential changing of the guard because you really have a set of top teams that, maybe even a few of them you didn't expect to be real title contenders at the beginning of the year. The Suns, the Jazz, my Sixers, up and coming, continuity. They're sort of starting to gel, well coached. And then you have kind of the 2 or 3 big boys, the guys with the pedigrees, the big names, the surefire Hall of Famer guys. In a few cases, guys that have even won championships. The Lakers and the Nets. And they're sort of between injuries and their attitude, laissez-faire attitude toward the regular season. They're both kind of saying, well, and sort of the Clippers are somewhere in between, I guess. Regular season, we'll see in the playoffs. So my question to you, Monte, is what's the approach and what profile of team do you think is going to win out in the NBA playoffs?
Okay, so in my preseason, I had the Lakers facing the Sixers. That was my preseason. Now, I've changed that a little bit. I still think the Philadelphia 76ers, by the way, I know he missed games, but when you watch the Joker play out in Denver and you watch Joel Embiid, to me, it's not even close. Joel Embiid's the MVP because he plays defense. He plays defense. The Joker can't guard anyone. You pick and roll with him, get a guard. Joel Embiid should win the MVP. But with that said, I like the Sixers. The Nets, too many injuries. They can't guard anyone. They have no – DeAndre Jordan is a good interior player, but he's going to play the fourth quarter, can't hit free throws, can't shoot. So they have no one to protect the rim. I like the Sixers. I like what they did in getting Danny Green. He's a playoff guy. They got Dwight Howard, who's a very good backup. They added Curry so that when Ben Simmons is on the floor, Curry could shoot the three. But I'm going to say something here because I've been watching them the last 6 or 7 games, and I didn't believe in them all year. But the acquisition of Drew Holiday and P.J. Tucker for the Milwaukee Bucks has done something to this team. PJ Tucker was in Kevin Durant's face all night last night. He has brought a toughness to this team. Drew Holiday is scrappy. You could rely on him to be the number 2. Chris Middleton is not a legitimate number 2. He disappears in the playoffs. But Drew Holiday now, the Milwaukee Bucks all of a sudden have a toughness to them that they didn't have. And I underestimated PJ Tucker all those years in Houston because he's bringing like a little bit of a bulldog mentality to the Bucks. So in the East, I really like – first of all, I wouldn't want to play Atlanta because Atlanta is a scary team with Trae Young, and they're a year or two off, but they have talent. But right now, I'm not buying into the Nets because they're not healthy. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they try, but they can't play defense. Think about this. With Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden on the floor, Kevin Durant's the best defender. That's how bad those two guys are. So I'm taking in the East. I'm taking Milwaukee and the Philadelphia 76ers to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
It is so amazing because, you know, I mean, it is going to be such a clash of approaches, and really it's going to test the things that we always believe in. You know, there's on one hand, the Stars win. So obviously those three, I mean, the Nets on paper have so much offensive firepower. It's incredible. I mean, those guys are amazing if they're all on, hypothetically.
They score 75 points a game, the three of them.
But then the other thing is that you have to play some defense. I mean, that hurt LeBron a few times with some of those Cavs teams. They didn't play enough defense, you know, regardless of the offense. So that's going to be interesting. The other thing is, you know, coaching does matter. And, you know, Steve Nash is a sharp mind, but obviously on some level that, you know, Kyrie shows up when he feels like it. Harden and Durant play when they feel like it. And on some level, can a team that's that loosely run with, by the way, a guy who's a great player, but he wasn't big on defense when he played.
Listen, it goes against everything you believe in, right? You got to practice. You got to play hard. You can't take games off. The Nets go against everything we believe in when it comes to basketball. And Doc Rivers, again, acquiring Dwight Howard, getting Danny Green. These guys are playoffs. Nothing rattles them. Danny Green is the most frustrated player in the history of the NBA because he'll go in game 3 of a playoff series, he'll go 0 for 4. You don't know he's out there. But then in game 4, he'll go 6 for 6 in the third quarter, hitting all threes.
The problem with the Sixers, and I talk about the things you're supposed to care about, right? The guy plays defense. The guy rebounds. The guy passes. The guy rarely gets hurt. He can play 80 minutes a day. He's always in top shape. But the timidity of Ben Simmons in the half court in these big moments, it really is a problem. And I hate to sound like the Simmons hater, but it's the thing in the back of my mind I worry about. So I think at the end of the day, Tobias Harris is the key because he's going to do his thing. But if Tobias can really be that true number 2 offensively when it counts, and Simmons can really kind of be that Rondo glue Draymond Green character and not need to hit a big shot when it matters, then we're going to be in good shape. So it's going to be really interesting. And I agree with you.
I'm high on the Sixers. I'm high on the Sixers.
And I'm higher on the Bucks than I used to be. The Bucks,
me too,
are high. They're a real threat to knock out the Nets. And frankly, they've really done well against the Nets and the Sixers over the last month or so. So they're a threat for the finals. No question about it. They are playing.
You know, they failed in the playoffs for 2 years in a row. They came up short, but they have like a toughness to them now. They really do.
I want to get back to the East in a second because we do have to talk about the Cinderellas in the East, the surprise Cinderellas. West Coast, brother. The Suns are playing out of their minds. You could argue Chris Paul should be considered for MVP. Devin Booker is just blossoming in front of our eyes. I don't know why the Sixers didn't keep, what's his name? The Mikal Bridges when we drafted him. I mean, do you think still? I mean, the Lakers may have to play in the play-in tournament. Do you really think the Lakers are still going to get through this gauntlet? The Clippers are playing well. They're shooting out the lights. It's going to be really interesting in the West.
I'm very concerned about the Lakers because they're not healthy, obviously. One of the things I love when they went out and they got Andre Drummond is last year their starting 5 or the 5 at the end. Their head coach is the only coach in the league who still likes to go big, right? So when they go out and last year they'd have Dwight Howard, they'd have Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma, and Rondo. Everyone over 6'5", 6'6". Same thing now with Drummond. He's going to play Drummond at the end of games with Anthony Davis. Then you have LeBron. Then you have Kuzma. Then you have, it could be KCP. It could be THC. It could be one of their backups. Remember, they are the longest team in the league now again, but they're not healthy. I am not buying into the Suns. I think the Suns need a legitimate another scorer. I am not buying into the Utah Jazz. Again, other than Donovan Mitchell, who's going to get to 25 points in a game 5? You're not going to get 25 from Rudy Gobert.
Jordan Clarkson,
Clippers, we know Paul George. Jordan Clarkson, he's going to win 6th Man of the Year. Jordan Clarkson's really doing his thing. It's amazing to see all these Lakers, Brandon Ingram, Jordan Clarkson, with the Knicks. What's his name? The power forward that the Lakers.
Oh, Julius Randle.
Randle.
Yeah, Julius Randle's
It's amazing to see if the Lakers kept all those players, they would be so dominant. But you can't argue what the Lakers did. They won the championship last year. Again, if the Lakers are healthy, no one is beating them in the West. No one.
All right. So I'm going to show you because you just referenced it. It's hard for me as a Sixer fan to do it, but I got to do it. You got to give love to these Knicks. You got to give love to these Knicks. Long winning streaks, exciting basketball. Julius Randle, low key MVP candidate. Monte, you follow them closely. I guess I should be concerned about some of this. I guess I should be concerned about them on some level. They'll be scrappy second round opponent potentially, but throw your flowers to the Knicks. You got to give them some props. They've really been exciting this year.
They've been phenomenal on the NBA League Pass. And I will say this, RJ Barrett from year 1 and 2 has gotten better than John Morant did from year 1 and 2. RJ Barrett plays defense. He gets to the rim. He shoots the 3. He's a finisher around the rim. But the problem with the Knicks is what always Tom Thibodeau has been. And I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine. The Knicks were playing the Phoenix Suns. They're down 1 with 5 minutes left. R.J. Bullock shoots a jumper, misses. Derrick Rose shoots 2 jumpers. And I think Nerves Noel missed like a 4-footer. And this is the problem with Tom Thibodeau because he's such a defensive coach. Any team in the league, you're down 1 with 4 minutes left. You're putting the ball in Julius Randle's hands. You're putting the ball in R.J. Barrett's hand. The 2 best players on the Knicks against the Suns, when the Knicks won 9 in a row at home, down 1, he didn't want to play for him. It was Derrick Rose, R.J. Bullock, and Nerlens Noel. So 3 guys. This is the problem with Tom Thibodeau. They are a great defensive team. They're number 1 in almost every defensive category. They are a very good rebounding team. You only have 2 guys to score, and if you're down 1 with 10 seconds left, I have no confidence in Tom Thibodeau drawing up a play and getting a good shot.
I still think they'll beat the Hawks though in the first round.
I think they will. But I just think second round they don't have enough scoring. They have 2 guys who score.
Yeah,
that's it. The Knicks.
Not worried about it.
It's a great year. You said it. Julius Randle could win MVP. He should get some votes. Tom Thibodeau won't win Coach of the Year because I think it's going to Monty Williams out in Phoenix. But Tom Thibodeau could win Coach of the Year.
I would love to see the Knicks play the Sixers in the playoffs. It'd be a lot of fun for the East Coast. And I got to give him credit. They're doing it the right way. And I always like Julius Randle coming out of college. I'm glad he's blossomed. He's been fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about the Knicks. This is so crazy.
When the Knicks let Kristaps Porzingis go, you were like, when they traded him to Dallas, you're like, Julius Randle? Are you kidding me? Julius Randle and Tom Thibodeau, God bless him. I think he knows he has 2 scorers. He lets sometimes those guys take really bad shots, but he doesn't take them out, which he used to do in the past when he was in Minnesota. He used to do this all the time. So Tom Thibodeau has evolved a little bit, but again, you need someone, especially nowadays in the playoffs with the 3-point shooting and teams getting up and down the court. You need a coach that's really going to every time. You call timeout, and well-coached team like Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, they run a play, they get a great shot.
No question about it. We'll wrap up the show, Monty. Let people know. Give us one other nugget, something in the sports world you're following. We didn't even have time to get into the baseball. The season's been an interesting start. And we'll have you on for our summer special to talk more about the hardball. But anything else you want to share, and shout out again where people can find your weekly show at Nuts and Bolts Sports.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me what's going on with baseball, because just the injuries, and we're seeing this in the NBA as well because of the shortened season, because of COVID protocols. People are not working out as a team like they used to. They didn't, basketball didn't really have a big time training camp. It wasn't, people are getting injured, and it's just amazing to me that still we're over a year into this thing, and people are still. Dennis Schroeder is now missing 2 weeks, 10 to 14 games for the Lakers because of COVID protocols. So it's amazing to me that COVID and these athletes are still coming up with it, and it's such a sad state of events. You look at the Dodgers too. Our good friend George Lopez, Dodger fan, they started off super hot. Injuries have hit them. They're struggling now behind San Francisco. So it's all about, in every sport, especially now with COVID and shortened season, it's all about staying healthy.
That speaks also to the sports nugget I wanted to share. I was just thinking about it the other day, Monte, is that has there ever been an Olympics around the corner? Was it like less than 3 months away that has less buzz, less interest? Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's worried about who's going to make any of our. I remember when the Olympic trials in track and field was like a big deal. The boxing trial, is just it is nowhere as it relates to the sports world in this country. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. My dad, we were watching a game the other day, and he's like, "Oh, the Olympic trials." He's like, "Is that still going on?" And my dad's a huge Olympic fan.
Yeah, it's incredible, and the nonsense with the soccer leagues in Europe. They're talk about the masses rising up against the man there. American sports owners getting their just desserts. Monte Perez, thank you so much, brother. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'm so excited to collaborate with you on Bomba Live 2, us being our sports producer for our sports content. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I look forward to working with you over the next 6 weeks. We're going to end the show with two of your favorite women that are part of the Bomba Live community, Funky Bacalao and Cooking with Omi, two TikTok icons in the Puerto Rican cooking, comedy cooking world. Your favorite combination. Collaborated recently, and Omi was trying to teach Funky how to make a quick and easy Puerto Rican meal. Thank you so much, brother. I'll see you soon. And again, support Nuts and Bolts Sports, support Monte Perez. Give a shout out and love to Joe Cardozo, our friends with the Nuts and Bolts family, and have a wonderful weekend. And Bomba Live 2 around the corner, June 12th.
Yeah. Omi, Funky Bacalao. Este año Thanksgiving va a ser en mi casa y a mí me tocó el arroz con gandules. Tú sabes que lo mío es la comedia, no la cocina. ¿Tú me puedes enseñar, por favor?
Vas a coger tu caldero, le vas a dar la vuelta con el aceite una vez. Vas a coger la misma cuchara con la que se sirve el arroz, vas a coger el sofrito y fuá para allá. Y vas a coger un puño de cilantro, fuá también.
Un puño de cilantro, ¿y eso cómo se mide?
Picas tus vegetales chiquitos.
Ay, no, yo sé mucha información.
Vas a lavar el arroz 3 veces.
3 veces. Ni yo me baño tanto. Pero no le vamos a echar adobo.
El adobo, la cantidad que te dé a tu corazón. Después de ahí, menea que te menea. Es lo más fácil que hay, nena.
Claro, lo más fácil que hay.
Pues tú me dices, ok, está bien, bye.
Que se chave. Yo voy a ordenar Uber Eats.